I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Anthony Reynolds.
Here.
Eugene Sullivan.
Here.
Stephanie Euler. Here. Jonathan Smith.
Here.
Brian Venziano.
Here.
Debbie Koalas. Here. David Hart.
Here.
Aubrey Searway.
Here.
Hannah Waning.
Okay, I'd love a motion to approve minutes. So moved.
Second. Debbie.
Any discussion? Gene?
Well, I don't know if we do anything with typos or not. I saw like Jeremiah Rancourt was a speaker. It looks like his name was spelled wrong, if that matters.
We can correct that.
And then, I don't remember, it says like Debbie Koalas wasn't available, was absent from the vote, and I just don't remember that. Is that correct?
She had stepped out for a moment.
Okay.
Yeah, just.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I have, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? Perfect. All right, chair comments, I don't have any, so we're all set.
No,
Student reports?
it's the chair comments.
Sorry.
Key Club inducted their new leadership team for the 26-27 school year. Thank you. NHS inducted 6 new members. Herman's STEM class brought 3 teams to UMaine to compete in the 11th annual Windstorm Challenge, consisting of over 70 teams. All floating rafts that were built and presented survived the windstorm. And last Friday, JRTC held their annual banquet. Cadets were recognized for their year-long efforts, and their leadership team for next year was announced.
Perfect. Superintendent's report for the budget presentation FY27.
Won't figure out.
No, you're fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I begin with our budget presentation and my other remarks, I just want to acknowledge that this is Aubrey's last official meeting with us. She graduates at the beginning of June, and I said to her that we love to see her, but there's no expectation that she haul herself back to a meeting after she's received her diploma. So Aubrey, we have 2 things for you tonight. The first is a certificate signed by Mr. Reynolds and myself of appreciation, so you can hang it loud and proud in your dorm room when you're in Florida. And then the second is just a small gift acknowledging just your hard work and your articulate nature. Thank you very much. It's such a thrill. Every time I'm in the school, I see Aubrey either in her role as a JROTC battalion commander or doing something with another community service group. And so you're going to do amazing things, and we're going to watch you and cheer you on along the way.
Thank you.
So committee members, before I begin, I just wanted to acknowledge a few things that we've been celebrating these past few weeks. I had the honor to attend the National Honor Society induction just before spring break. The seniors who already are on the National Honor Society are in the photo on the left, and there's Mackenzie Euler front and center on that. The newly inducted juniors, all 6 of them, are in that photo on the bottom, and Hannah Waning, who is one of our board liaisons, is on the far left. So congratulations to Hannah and to her peers. That was a really nice ceremony and a nice event. I also had the privilege of attending the JROTC banquet on Friday night. Again, a really neat event where the senior students are allowed to invite their parents to attend. So it's a chance for me to see kids I've seen all year, but then meet their parents and be able to embarrass the students and say nice things about them in front of their parents. And then, as Aubrey indicated, they name next year's leader, and it's just really a very formal and elegant event, and it's such a pleasure to be there. This week is Teacher Appreciation Week. Committee members, you have in your packet a little Post-it note with our Herman brand on it. Those were made available to all of our educators in their faculty lounges with a note of appreciation from the school committee and from me. The elementary school held a literacy night last week. This is something that they do on an annual basis with the University of Maine. It's an opportunity for student teachers, not just from Herman, but other student teachers in the region, to come and present special lessons to students. Parents are invited to be there. I was especially proud of our Title I teachers who had a special evening classroom presentation, and then some great literary books, manipulatives, things that kids could bring home to practice with their families. The elementary school also presented an hour of code last week, which was a chance for elementary school students, again with their parents, to come and see Lego robotics in action, to hear from some folks from the Maine DOE about the work that's being done with AI and what the expectations will be for students in future years, and also just things for parents to keep an eye out for within their families. That was really, really well done. And our middle school held Spring into Arts before the spring break, and that's always a great chance to connect kids with lots of different craft and visual and performing arts opportunities. So it's that time of year. There's a lot going on and lots to celebrate with our student body. All right, so let's take a look at the superintendent's recommendation for our fiscal year 27 school budget. And we've been back and forth on this a number of times, school committee members. I've appreciated your dialogue, your ideas on this, as well as the discussions that have happened at the town council level as well. This is really my final proposal to you this evening. I would urge you, once we're finished talking through this, to approve this so that we can provide warrant articles to our town council folks for their meeting on Thursday this week. So here's where we're at. At our April 6th school committee meeting, there was a motion and a second, and it was passed that the base budget would be $21,122,143. Sorry, $122,143. And when I took that number to the town committee, the town council, they were less worried about the base budget. Certainly, they said that their preference was we go back to an earlier base, which was associated with a 0% increase to the town, but they were ambivalent, that's my word, not theirs, about what the base budget would be. They, in a straw poll, informal discussion, not a vote, indicated that they would be comfortable contributing $322,000 over what they had contributed last year. That the base budget was up to us. If we went higher than that 0% increase, we would need to make up the difference as the school department, as the school committee. So working with that, here's where we are. Acknowledging the very generous contribution of the town council with that $322,000, I then worked with our finance director and our administrative team to go back through our list of what had been reduced out of the budget and to identify those particulars that we thought might be difficult to sustain over time or may potentially harm students and programs either through an increase in class size or an inability to properly support special education students. And so what we did was we came up with what items would continue to be reduced, what we would add back in, and with that, we are able to provide a new base budget, which is lower than what the school committee had approved on April 6th by about $94,000, a new base budget of $21,027,000. $955. This base budget would maintain all the previous reductions, and I'll walk through those in a moment so we can all refresh our memories at the same time. It maintains all previous reductions. It includes these items added into the budget. A full-time teacher position. This likely would end up being a special education position. I'll speak more to this in a moment. A Department of Education approved bus, which will help us in future funding, because if we indicate in our budget that we intend to purchase a bus, then we are eligible for a reimbursement model from the state down the line. You'll recall that we did not have that bus in the budget originally. It had been reduced out like in the first round, and there were, I thought, thoughtful discussions about how people were concerned about that. This budget also includes a full-time high school counselor. Committee members, you'll recall that I spoke with you in person, individually, over the holiday break about the need for an additional third counselor at the high school. And at the time, we didn't know whether it would require transferring our existing counselors to be able to achieve 3, or whether we could leave everyone intact where they are and have this be an outside hire. With the budget I'm presenting to you tonight, we're able to leave our counselors intact in their current positions, and this would be an additional hire at the high school. This budget makes use of no reserve funds. It would draw from undesignated in the amount of about $436,000. And as I've said before, our anticipated carry forward at this time seems to be rounding out to about 4%. And that's the dollar amount associated with that. And again, I would just remind you that we never really have that number solid until the auditor reviews our budget and looks at what's been expended and where our revenue has come in and what's the difference. So I'm giving you my educated guess based on many, many years of budgeting, but that still is a number that's not solid. These are the reductions that are reflected in the fiscal year 27 proposal. On the personnel side, there's the reduction of an EdTech 3, the reduction of our district gifted and talented teacher, but not the reduction of the program. I want to be clear about that. The elimination of the Assistant Director of Special Services position, that was a .4 position. We're not losing that person, we're losing the position. The Assistant Director of IT, a maintenance staff person whom we can absorb into our custodial team. A speech therapist, and I'll remind you that we actually have been posting for this all year and not able to hire anyone. So we've been outsourcing it with contracts for providers out of the district. This remaining $31,000 is the difference between what we've been paying providers and what we would have paid as a district had we hired our own speech therapist. The pre-K position, which we are adding because we're introducing the 3-year-old program at our elementary school. The position as a new hire is out of the budget. We're able to move some internal folks around and still have that pre-K 3-year-old teacher position. And then finally, some reduced health benefits in the tune of just under about $80,000 because our information from the state indicated that what we had originally budgeted was higher than where we believe this will land. From a facility perspective, these are the reductions that are still in the budget or taken out of the budget. The fire pump system will be paid through the capital reserve fund for $80,000. And I'm realizing I said in an earlier slide that there was no reserve taken out, so I want to acknowledge that. We had removed the bus van in the amount of $125,000. That would not have been a DOE approved vehicle. We have miscellaneous budget adjustments in the amount of about $43,000. We are still putting off the resurfacing of the tennis court, and we've put off the roof replacement at our district offices. Here's what the budget does include. It does include a full-time teaching position, likely a special education position. You may recall when we were talking about reductions, we were looking also to reduce a resource room teacher position. It wasn't the position we were reducing, it was our intent to staff it with an existing staff member. What I'm looking at right now are two things. I'm looking at our class sizes, especially as we get kindergarten enrollments for families who may not have attended our preschool programs. And I'm looking at the number of children either moving in and requiring special education services or being classified during this springtime window and may need services. And I think it would be prudent to provide flexibility in that staffing position to be able to move a staff member into either a class size reduction or a special ed position, depending on where that lands. The high school guidance counselor is in there, and the DOE approved bus is in there. This budget also maintains the middle school course program, which would be new this year, and we spoke about that earlier, and the ability to share some of our teachers with the high school. It still includes the grade 4 accelerated math program, which is one way that we will be addressing gifted and talented students at the elementary school. And it includes all summer curriculum writing that sets us up for success in September, including the new Ceramics 2 class that the board approved a few months ago. As a reminder, this is where our undesignated fund balance stands with nearly 1.6 million. As I said, we expect about a 4% undesignated or carry forward. That would be approximately $823,000 once we hear from the auditor in August what that amount is. So that would become the FY26 number. And this is the revenue slide, which indicates what the town's contribution is. You'll see that in a few places. The state subsidy is at the top. That's what our state funding is. The local required is from the town of Herman. And there's already an increase of $284,000 and $200. Local debt services, which is also funded through the town, that's actually down for FY27. And then to round out to the total of $322,000, you'll see local additional has an extra $48,433. So committee members, this is where we stand this evening. I know it's hard to keep track as we've been through so many iterations of this. I welcome your questions, and we have our Director of Finance in the front row to also assist.
The ED 279 states that we should have 5 guidance counselors. We should have 4. We have 5. So the addition of another one would put us at 6 above the recommended 4. That position was reduced last year. Remind me why it's coming back.
It was reduced last year through final budget discussions. And one of the things that I think is unfortunate with the state funding formula is that it neglects recognizing the true needs of our students at this particular point in their school lives. And I know at our elementary school, the counselors and teachers were very open and candid with me about the needs of the students that they're seeing and issues with self-regulation and issues with students who are coming from difficult home situations, and the importance of having 2 such folks at the elementary level. We have 1 at the middle school level, and she's incredibly busy and incredibly capable. The loss of the 3rd guidance counselor at the high school has really impacted us in a number of ways. It means that as we continue to support students in their college journey, in their college application journey, we have 1 less person to support that. We have students who are going to UTC who are also still college bound, and they're only in the building for half a day. So there's a lot of scheduling to be able to make sure we're not missing them simply because they attend a different school for the other half of the day. And finally, I would suggest that
as challenging as some of the behaviors and the emotions that we're seeing in our pre-K to 5 students are at the elementary level, picture that in a 16-year-old. Picture that in an 18-year-old. And we are dealing with some very serious, very inflammatory behaviors that I think really benefit from the addition of a third counselor and just another set of eyes on students, because we've got great kids and they're hardworking and they're in a safe, supported environment here in school, but we really do need that additional counselor to continue to do our best work.
I'll make one comment, I think, and I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm sure you can help me. We did get rid of a few interventionists. Does that help with the guidance counselor situation? In other words, I mean, those help young kids who are having problems and parents, and we did get rid of a bunch of them. So is that one reason we should add a guidance counselor?
So are you talking about interventionists from a previous budget cycle?
Yes. Yeah. The last year.
Okay, I'm afraid I'm not in a position to speak to that, but I will just reinforce that as I've been talking with folks and moving around and understanding the needs of our kids,
Right.
having extra adults in the high school is
telling us
helpful.
we with their formula we may have too many guidance counselors. Have they taken into consideration that we've reduced the interventionists? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Okay.
Question about the reduced maintenance position being absorbed in the custodial staff. Can you help me understand the differences there? And are we losing a person or not so?
So we've had a retirement in one of our head custodians and interviewed for that position. We had only internal candidates interested in that position. And so through the promotion of one and the absorption of another, we're able to reduce a maintenance position out of the budget, but nobody loses a job.
And no concerns about duties, needs going unmet, like that.
Well, one of the things we're trying to be really cognizant of is that some of our custodial and maintenance folks also do bus driving for us. In fact, quite a bit of bus driving for us. So it's been our desire to make sure that we have the right number of custodial and maintenance people to do custodial and maintenance work, while at the same time hiring for van and bus drivers. And this lets us really, I think, be more clear about the work that needs to be done in our schools and to really allocate the work in that direction and deal with the driver issue separately. I think because we've had an extra, that's my word, extra, because we've had an additional maintenance person who has been able to drive. We have a few who are able to drive. They've been pulled pretty regularly for that. My preference would be to use our custodial maintenance according to their job description and hire separately for a van bus driver to be able to do that work instead of constantly pulling, because then we're not getting the tasks done that we need to have done at the school level.
What's the net impact of FTEs, meaning how many are reduced versus how many are added? Is it an actual reduction or addition at the end of the day?
It's definitely a reduction at the end of the day.
That's what I was trying to
It's
calculate.
definitely.
Regarding the carry forward, is a question I asked earlier, regarding the reserve. We had $375,000 from reserve last year, and the response I got, I believe I understand it to be that $375,000 is included in the $823,000 in carry forward.
Excuse me, could you use the microphone, please? Okay.
Jamie, do you want to take this?
So when you look at the year-to-date expenditures on the monthly cost center report, when you look at the expenditures year-to-date on the cost center report, they are already in that year-to-date figure. So they are they've been taken into consideration when she is giving the $800,000-ish estimate.
Okay, so does the $800,000 include the 375 or does not include the 375?
It's after the 375 has been paid out of our expenditures.
So
They're part of the expenditures. You're kind of asking two sides of the same question here at once.
So when I look at it carry forward, are we increasing our unassigned fund balance by $823,000 or
Yes.
we are?
Yes,
So then that would be.
that's the number after those have been included already in the expenditures.
Okay.
That's what she's looking at.
So then the reserves, the $375,000 worth of reserves, we did not use and they remained in their original accounts.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I think you're off the hook.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, where are we approving this budget on this agenda?
That would be, Mrs. Euler, that would be an add-on number 5 under finance to approve the FY, thank you for pointing that out, to approve the FY 27 budget as presented.
Where are we talking? First page. J5.
Okay, now we'll go to subcommittee reports, finance. Brian, can you handle that for us?
Yep. Let's see. We had a finance subcommittee meeting this past week. Tony Reynolds, myself, Dr. Sargent, Jamie Youngblood, and Mr. Freeman were in attendance. We discussed a MacBook buyback program where we would be able to sell back our aging MacBooks as we replace them through the Chromebook program, which would provide income back into the district for those devices. It also saves money because we would have to, in the future, spend money to dispose of them. So that is something that we look positively into doing. We reviewed the FY27 budget update, which was the majority of the presentation that was just presented. The unexpended trend, which is the little line detail that was in your presentation, which shows that we are currently spending under last year's spend rate, which is a good thing. The FY26 April report was presented by Mrs. Youngblood, in which we still show a 94% utilization rate, and when we get to the budget, I'll have to ask some more questions about that. But we've encumbered or expended 94% of our FY26 budget. We discussed a hot lunch fund, the hot lunch fund, and the fact that we are over our allowable limit on our annual hot lunch fund, and the director of hot lunch has provided director of the lunch program has provided a spend program of purchases that they would like to see this year using FY26 funds from the food service program. And then you will also see later in the agenda a transportation radios quote to outfit the fleet of buses with transportation radios that would enter into a statewide network, which would overall reduce the cost of our Verizon cell phones. And that will be using FY26 funds if we approve.
Anything else, Mrs. Chair?
You got it, bud.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
According to policy DJ, any large items that would appear on the warrants, I would expect that we would be approving it as a committee prior to because of the amount. Brian, is that a $10,000 amount that requires the 3 bids? Or
It is.
multiple?
It
Okay,
is.
thank you. And there was a large purchase of high school sound system upgrade, I believe, for the auditorium. And I don't believe we followed policy with having that approved prior to it being submitted on the warrant.
I think Alex can speak to it better.
Hi there. No work has begun in the auditorium at this point. Policy DJ, the bidding and purchasing requirements, my understanding and interpretation of the policy is that over $10,000 we do need to receive bids, but over $50,000 is when the board needs to approve it at that point. So I was able to get 2 bids for the project. There's not a lot of vendors that deal with auditorium equipment in the state. So that is what I was able to get for that project.
Thank you. We're not being consistent. Mr. Chair, is what's confusing me. Under business and finance, number 4 is asking us to approve something over $20,000. So just consistency, I think, is key to ensure that we're following policy. Either we approve them or we don't.
All right, Debbie, are you the one that's gonna do this, or
I
John?
think I'm gonna do it, he's gonna fill in the blanks.
There you go.
We met on April 29th. For second reading, we're bringing forth KDB policy, public's right to know. There's no recommendation for changes on that. KDA, public information policy, no recommendations on that. KLG, relations with law enforcement authorities. That's a policy that we're asking to abolish because it's in other policies. KLG-R, procedural, relation with law enforcement authorities and the administrative procedure. Minor recommendations to KLGA, relations with school resource officers and law enforcement authorities. So those we're bringing forth for the second read. The superintendent's evaluation, we're bringing forward for a first read and looking to recode that so that it fits in with some of the other policies. First reads, we're bringing forth records management, competitive food sales, meal charging, free lunch, closing of school. Bomb threats we're holding off because we need more information on that. And operation and maintenance for asbestos is also being brought for first read.
Perfect. Anything to add, John? Curriculum, technology, we have nothing there. Negotiations, have we met yet again?
No, we have not.
So nothing there. Okay, public comment. I've been very liberal with letting people talk. I've got a little bit of slack from the public, but I've at least announced at every meeting. We're not following the policy exactly like we should be, but I do think it's working to let the community voice their opinion on stuff. So, who we got first? Oh, Terry Ham Morris.
Terry Ham Morris, Riverview Drive. My question about your budget, because I've been questioning about this, is that you had $375 over budgeted last year, and you're going to be over budgeted this year. I think you said $800,000. Is that correct? And I've had the question posed to me a couple times. Number one, the roof of the superintendent's, where you have your office, apparently is in pretty bad shape and needs to be done. So I wonder why, if you have this extra money, you don't do that. Because it was brought to my attention, it was given to the school as a gift by the Oddfellows, and they're a little upset that it's not being taken care of. So if you have that money, it doesn't seem like it'd be a huge ticket item. I'm not sure why it doesn't get done. It's been pushed aside twice, apparently. And the other item I think that always gets pushed aside is resurfacing the tennis courts. Now, I do know a little bit about that, having been a teaching pro, so I do know that that's not a huge ticket item either. It does require the court to be repaired first, and then have new surface put on it. So those two items might be $150,000, $200,000. Okay, well that's a lot of money in anybody's book, but it's still, don't understand why it's been pushed off twice if the money has been in the budget to do it. And those are maintenance items that the longer you let them go, the worse they get. So that would be my main question. And if I could see a little better tonight, because I just had my eyes dilated, I would have looked a little closer at that budget, but I'll probably have some comments in another space. So thank you. I did, like I say, I had comments about that from a couple of people having to do with the Oddfellows, and I think I'm interested in seeing that the tennis courts get resurfaced. I don't think that's a huge budget item. So that's all I really had to say tonight. As I say, I couldn't really see the budget and couldn't really hear it either. Thank you.
Well, Terry, I don't remember last year that the Oddfellows building was mentioned, but I know this year it was.
Yeah.
And I wish we could do it too, and the tennis courts. I
So-
believe the Oddfellows we had was 40,000. Is that the, am I wrong?
It was. I want to say, first of all, thank you for your remarks. We have not heard from any of the Oddfellow membership, and they know where to find us. They've been generous enough to let us use their building. So I certainly would, appreciate a conversation with them. Please know that anything that we have made the decision to delay has not, in our assessment, risen to emergency status. So when we talk about being able to take another year to revisit the tennis courts next year, in my conversation with our facilities supervisor and with our athletic director, we are still able to run practices, run meets, and do all of that without jeopardy to students and game schedules and all that. And same thing for the roof. No one has indicated to us that we're in dire straits on that. And so that's the reason that we've been able to make the informed choice to move it back for another year. I think the one last thing that I would say is, I think we just have a difference of opinion of how much is over budgeting. I think when we talk about a $21 million budget, having roughly 4% at the end of it, I think fiscally that's wise and responsible. I think anything lower than that in the area of 1 or 2% means that we're cutting it way too close. And we put our ability to manage payroll every 2 weeks at risk. Anything over that in 5%, 6% territory, I think all of our school committee members have the right to question, like, what was in that you ended up not purchasing? What's the reason for that? So I think landing at the 3 or 4% mark, I think in an organization of our size, right? We're not talking about individual checked books. If I had that much left over at the end, that would be huge. But in a community organization of our size, I think that's a really wise area to land. It means we've probably gotten it just about right.
Anybody else wishing to speak? Okay, perfect. Business finance, I need a motion on the MacBooks.
Move to approve the sale of outdated MacBooks to Second Life Mac.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Abstentions? I see, I got it there. Okay, a motion on the food service program.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
I just would ask why, it goes back to what I was asking before, why it's on the agenda. It's a $4,400 item. Was it not in the budget? Why is it on here for us to approve?
I'm working off of past practice. I remember when I first started last year, there was an item about like some sort of combined stovetop, something else, and it was on the agenda. And so it's been my presumption that that's just our practice to approve these sorts of larger purchases.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Abstentions? Okay. Motion on the food service program of commercial food processors.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor? Abstentions? And number 4, motion.
Motion to approve. The radio system.
Second?
Any discussion? Gene, yeah?
I guess I got a couple of questions, but how did this come up? It just, and is there a particular time frame for this licensing agreement, or is it just a one-year deal?
We've been monitoring the phone situation with the buses for a while, and I know it's even come up in some of our informal meetings with the town with the question of whether the cell phones are sustainable, not only from an age of the phones, but just how the driver has to manage it and the vehicle all at the same time. So it's been an opportune time as the cell phones are beginning to reach their end of life, rather than doing a new purchase and having to reinstall them ourselves, to move forward with a radio where not only would it be cheaper in the long run, but then the company would also install the radios for us. This would be a summer project that would set us up for the beginning of the school year.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor? All those opposed? And abstention? Thank you. And now a motion on the final FY27 budget.
Move to approve the budget as presented this evening.
Do I have a second? I'll second it then. Any discussion?
I guess I just had a question about procedure, like in terms of, I'm a little bit confused on it. So if we vote yes, then it goes to the town and warrants are signed. But if we don't vote yes, what happens? I don't know.
A failure to approve a budget at this juncture puts a delay on the town. They're not able to have the warrants prepared for the town hall meeting in June.
That agreed. However, we could make a suggestion to stick with the 250,000 of undesignated that the committee looked at last time, because this is quite a change. We're taking quite a bit more from unassigned. Over 400,000. And it's not, I understand that we want liberty to determine where that position is going to go, but that's the purpose of the undesignated fund. If we find out over the summer that there's lots of people moving to Herman more than expected, that all of a sudden the numbers are going up versus declining, that's an opportunity for us to go back to the town and present and ask for some money to be taken from our unassigned.
Can we do that? I didn't think we could do that. I thought you had to stick with your budget.
Well, take another town meeting if you have a legitimate reason. You would have a town meeting requesting additional funds for a legitimate, if you would have a reason to bring to the town. So I don't think it's to kind of dovetail with what Gene was asking. There is no rush to judgment on this. If we have to, if you're not comfortable with this, let's not push it because we think we're on a time limit, or we can propose another budget number and vote on it. But urgency doesn't cause the emergency on this one. I think it's important we make a good decision.
Okay, Any other discussion?
I would like some further clarification from Jamie, just because you're right. I did ask the same question two different ways, and I'm looking at two different documents. So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding your answer, because I didn't ask it in a very clear way. On the year-to-date report, it shows that we still have $375,000 budgeted from reserves, and we have $375,000 actual remaining budgeted balance in reserves, which balances out our original budget this year of $20,592,564. When you follow that flow sheet through, it shows that we are at a 94% utilization or planned, including encumbrances, with $1,235,000 remaining.
Are you looking at the most recent report?
Yes. If I were to take the presentation from tonight, that the carry forward was $823,000, and that had already taken out the $375,000 from the reserve, if you add that $375,000 back, because that's what our budget was for this year, it gives us a $1.1 million still remaining in our budget.
So the $375,000 in the revenue section would offset the $375,000 of expenditures that actually happened. We have recorded the actual expenditures. The revenue would not come over into the actual column unless we requested that reimbursement from the town, which we did not do.
Yep.
So the revenues would not reflect an actual of $375,000.
Correct. And the budget then of $20,592,000 would be something less than $375,000. It'd be $215,000, something like that.
The budget would have been, we wouldn't have included those reserve
Yes.
projects without
Correct.
it, though.
Correct. So we're still sitting on a 94% utilization rate. So we underspent the budget, not revenue. We underspent or underspending the budget of $1.1 million to include the reserve that we didn't use.
I'm not following your logic with it. I'm not, because the expense of the reserve projects is in the expense lines. The actual expense where we paid the vendor is in the expense line.
Yes.
So when you're looking at the 6%, the 94%, the expenditures are being accounted for to come to that number. The lack of not recording the revenue in the top section is being considered to get to that number. They don't wash each other out because it only actually happened in the expense side.
Okay.
Okay.
On the ED 279, we're over on teachers. Are we penalized for being over that number?
So the ED 279 includes what the state feels is necessary in order to meet the minimum standards for the main goals. We're not necessarily penalized. We pick up whatever the difference is. It's not necessarily a penalty.
But we don't get the maximum amount, I'm hearing you say. We have to pick up the difference.
Correct. But in the offset, if we have positions that we are under in, we do collect off from not having as many in that area. So that it shifts from one spot to the other.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, one last piece that I think it's important for the committee to at least recognize and the town to know is that one concern I have is that you use unassigned fund balance and reserves to fill a funding gap. And last year's funding gap was $375,000. We plugged in a reserve if we needed it to fill that gap. Ideally, I would like to see us closing that funding gap. One of the reasons why we ran into problems, short of a better term, with the town is that to fill that funding gap was over a 4% increase to the taxpayer this year. So the town filled the funding gap but did not fund us anything over that. Well, we're looking to use unassigned fund balance that increases that funding gap. We're going from $375,000 to $436,362. So we're increasing that funding gap. So next year, when we sit down to do a budget and it goes to the town, that's going to be a 5% increase to this town's share of the school budget just to meet the funding gap of the $436,000, which I think will be a bigger concern next year. And then the question becomes, why? And it sounds like we're struggling to answer that. Where there is a presentation last month of the $20,822,000 that Mrs. Euler just referenced that is acceptable. And it helps meet our needs. And it meets, I know, Jean, me and you spoke quite a bit about wanting to get to that unassigned fund balance cap. It allows us to get to the unassigned fund balance cap, where the $436,000 does not allow us to get to the cap. We miss it by about $45,000. And this year's resources met this year's demand, and it would meet next year's demand. And I don't know how else to communicate that. When we looked at payroll, the payroll from the finance office was an increase of, I want to say, a little under $300,000. $225,000 was going to be the increase in payroll and benefits. And that represents 80% of this year's budget. If you apply the inflation rate to all the goods and services that we would purchase, which is a $4 million budget, that's a $200,000 increase, which gives us roughly a $500,000 increase to meet cost of living expenses increases. And we've got that. So I don't understand why we would be increasing our spending gap when we don't need to. It will only hurt us down the road. And it hurts us thinking for next year.
I think when we talk about the funding gap, you really need to remember, and I pointed this out at my very first budget presentation, that for us it's a revenue issue. That especially at the high school, because of reductions in staffing at the high school over the years, our tuition rate has been designated lower at the state level. And so when that keeps happening, then we lose the revenue that we might be getting from tuition. So part of what our goal has been in this budget cycle has been to protect to the greatest extent the high school staffing so that not only are we supporting students and maintaining programs, but maintaining a stable tuition source, which would address that funding gap or that revenue gap. I think the other thing to point out is that the budget that was approved on April 6th was over $21 million. The budget that's being recommended tonight is lower than that. So it's not quite down to what Mrs. Euler had suggested in one of her conversations, but we are still $94,000 lower than what the school committee approved on April 6th. And in the end, it's a 2.1% increase. And I think when we look at any organization holding that kind of an increase in this kind of environment, I think that is fiscally responsible.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, the motion on the floor is to go with the superintendent's recommendation during our presentation. All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstain? Gene, you vote yes?
Yes.
Okay. So it passes 3-2. All right, now we're going to second reading of policies.
I'd suggest to take them in a group to amend KDA, amend KDB, abolish KLG, amend KLGR, amend KLGA.
Seconded.
Okay.
I do have comments regarding KLGA and KLGR.
Go ahead.
Yeah, in KLG and KLGR, the same statement is made, which concerns me, and that is, that said, the administrators are not obligated, and it goes on to say, administrators are not obligated to make students or school facilities available to law enforcement for non-school related investigations, arrests that cannot be executed outside of school hours. I'm sorry, Terry. I'm asking the committee to relook on both policies specific to KLGA, paragraph C2. It states, line 3, that said, school administrators are not obligated to make students or school facilities available to law enforcement for non-school related investigations, arrests that cannot be executed outside of school hours. I would like to have that struck. I realize the administrators have legal obligations and they understand what those legal obligations are. By having this in the policy, I believe it sets a bad tone to say that they're not obligated. They know what they're obligated for. We need to, I think it's important for us to project a policy that we want to cooperate with law enforcement, not to inform our administrators that they're not obligated to.
Dr. Sargent, was that was in these policies before we started working on them, right?
It was, and I will add, we reviewed both of these policies with our school resource officer, and I will say that the philosophy is exactly the same. Law enforcement has no desire, unless it's an emergency, exigent situation, they have no desire to come into a school and impose an arrest or conduct an investigation unless it absolutely has to happen. And on the school side, the administrators would protect the school learning environment to the extent that they can. I think, although we certainly can bring this back for another round at subcommittee level, but I think that this language gives that flexibility, but if it's the desire of the school committee to look at it yet again and have something that's a little bit more tenable to the group, we certainly can do that.
I thought we talked about this once and we're looking for a better word than obligated. Am I wrong?
You are correct, Mr. Chair.
That, and I think there was a
have we
question.
come up with a better word than obligated and still would let them, not demand that they have to?
That's why I think striking it. Administrators are aware of their legal obligations and allow them to make the decisions. By saying they are not obligated, it leaves the impression that we, at least from my point of view, it leaves the impression that we don't want them to. It is an administrative procedure. Let the administrators manage it. If it's something that they can legally do, then let them. Or a decision that they can make.
Would it sound softer if it said school administrators have discretion over, providing access to students or school facilities?
In my opinion, no. Yeah. I mean, they know what their obligations and limitations are. By having it in a policy, it leaves a tone that we leave the discretion of whether we want to work with law enforcement or not. Administrators do have that discretion, agreed, but making it part of policy in this way,
I believe it leaves the message that is not as cooperative to law enforcement, where I think we need to leave the impression with our students that we want to be cooperative with law enforcement.
Go ahead, Gene.
Yeah, I think I agree with Brian, and not to jump around policies here, but it's related to what he's talking about when we look at KLG-R.
It's the same phrase.
Yeah, when you look at A3, same phrase, when there is a warrant to arrest a student that cannot be executed outside of school hours, and then it says school administrators are not obligated to make students or school facilities available to law enforcement for non-school related investigations or arrests that cannot be executed outside of school hours. The other issue I have is when you go further down to letter D of the same policy, I think it contradicts itself, because it says a student may be removed from school by law enforcement authorities when there is a court order, an arrest warrant, or when there is a warrantless arrest authorized by law. I don't understand how D and 3 don't contradict themselves. But I go back to Brian's point. I agree with Brian. I don't understand the purpose of the language. I think we should be setting the tone of cooperation with law enforcement.
Okay, so,
I retract my motion.
perfect. All right, would you like to make a motion, Brian, to get rid of obligated?
Do we want to obligate it, or does it want to go back to committee? It doesn't matter to me. I mean, I'm more than happy to make a motion to strike from that said. So I started with policy KLG, so I will go back to KLGA. Paragraph C.
Paragraph C, sub 2. Law enforcement authorities may enter the school building when there is a warrant to arrest a student that cannot be executed outside of school hours, period. Full stop. Everything after that, stating, that said, school administrators are not obligated to make students or school facilities available to law enforcement for non-school related investigation of arrest cannot be executed outside of the school. To strike that whole section. Everything after that said.
So the only thing I'm getting tripped up on, because we're the ones that'll tangle with this when we get to subcommittee, and your points are well received. I would agree that D might contradict that in A3 if we're still in KLGR. And then I think not only D, but I would also look at B and C. I think all three of those sort of create conditions or procedures in which, it shows an openness to cooperation with law enforcement. So the only thing I'm hesitant about that I need to understand is what I was asking at first of Dr. Sargent to confirm. Like, these were in policy when they came to us, and so there's some historical reason why this is drafted the way it was. And so I'm fine if we want to, kind of revision that for present day circumstances, but I also don't want to do something wrong if there is a really good reason for it to be there. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay, so we didn't get a second on Brian's hard work on his motion. So,
sorry about that. Right.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. So do you guys want to make a motion to send it back and to review it again? I think we're all on the same page.
Okay, so the motion wasn't seconded. And then do you want to make a motion to send it back to committee?
Send it back to committee.
I move to send it back to committee. Subcommittee.
What one?
KLG.
A and dash R.
Yes.
Both of them.
Yeah, R.
Well,
KLG is going to be abolished because of how closely it resembled KLGR. So I think it's KLGR and KLGA.
Yes.
Did we get a second?
Second
by Stephanie. Gene?
Well, I mean, I would even, the first sentence even, law enforcement authorities may enter the school building when there is a warrant to arrest a student and cannot be executed outside of school hours. I don't get that either. there's a warrant to arrest, there's a warrant to arrest. You know, so I understand why, whether it's during school hours or outside of school hours, I feel like we're impeding law enforcement from doing their job. Obviously, we don't want that to impact students and other students, but I just don't understand the purpose of the language at all.
We can certainly address that. I know, again, in my experience with law enforcement in our middle and high schools, they really work very hard to establish a positive relationship with teenagers, which can be very difficult. And I think if you have one instance of law enforcement coming into a school to execute an arrest that maybe could have waited until after 3 o'clock in the privacy of that student's home or on their property, I think it goes a long way toward securing a more trusting relationship with law enforcement. However, I do understand what folks have been bringing forth, and we can certainly discuss this again.
Okay, all set, Gene? Okay. All those in favor of sending it back for a second look, a third look? Okay, excuse me. Okay, all set.
KLG.
Next time, Brian, I'll second your motion so we can move to discussion. Sorry.
We need another motion for the first three. They weren't included in that.
Yeah, would you like to make that?
Yep. To amend KDA, amend KBB, and abolish KLG.
Seconded.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Perfect. And now, first reading of policies. We have a motion.
Motion to approve to amend the first reading of AFB.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Gene?
Yeah. So this is to change it to CBI, is that what we're doing? Yeah, so I don't know about others on the committee, but when we did the superintendent evaluation this year, I found it to be okay in terms of the procedure, but like for example, I feel like the school committee can opine on relationship of the superintendent with the school committee. Obviously, we could have an opinion on that and whether Dr. Sargent was highly effective, developing, ineffective, so on and so forth. Similarly with community relations. But then there's some rubrics like staff relations that, frankly, I don't see your interaction with staff day to day, so I can only go on, my personal experience. But I guess I'm just kind of wondering, because I think these evaluations are important. And it would be good potentially to have some process in place where perhaps we can hear from staff or somehow get some feedback from staff so that we could have that as part of the evaluation. That was one point I wanted to make.
I have a point about that, Gene. Do you want me to speak to that, or do you want to make both points?
Absolutely. Go for it.
I had the same exact feeling when we talked about this in subcommittee, that I felt I could only speak to so much as a school committee member, not involved in the day-to-day inner workings of the superintendent's role. So I think if I'm in 4B, Dr. Sargent did a little research. Maine School Management Association, they had a provision in their policies. So committee chair may seek an individual assessment information from other sources within the district, such as, but not limited to, central office administrators and directors, building administrators, and teacher leadership. So I know at my place of employment, I think they call it like 360-degree feedback forms. Basically, all the people you interact with, above you, below you, aside, to your side, have a chance to weigh in on your performance. And then that, I think, is even more integral to a high quality evaluation as opposed to just what we could provide. So I would strongly recommend that we include that in the process next year, that we include additional input from folks that work closely with Dr. Sargent. And so, Gene, I can join with you.
I'll add some clarification if I could, please. The white form is the new code, CBI. The yellow form, are we getting rid of that?
That was part of the two.
So This is being removed. The yellow portion of it's being removed, and the only portion that we're going to have as part of the policy is the white form.
Yep. Yeah, major revision from the yellow form, which, as you see, has the old evaluation form embedded in it too. So that was part of the reason for the big overhaul. And then this new policy is a little cleaner.
So the other part of that discussion on CBI that I wanted to talk about was it seems to get into this in the proposed language. I'm trying to find it, but I think somewhere it says, and correct me if I'm wrong, isn't there like a January to March time frame somewhere in here? Or did I make that up? Number one. So I think that when you really look at this, it looks like there's different procedure in this proposal as opposed to what I went through recently when we did the eval. Specifically, it looks like there are, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but 2 executive sessions that we're going to have. The first executive session, Dr. Sargent may or may not attend, contingent on whether one of us brings up some kind of concerning behavior that we have to the chair, correct? Then she can attend, she has to attend that first executive session if we bring that allegation up. But otherwise, she doesn't attend the first executive session. And then the second executive session, she does attend, which is different than what we just did, am I correct? Mm-hmm. So if that's what we're doing, then, and we have this kind of goal in here of January 31st, concluded the process by March 31st, I think we need to be like really specific with our deadlines to achieve this. So like when I looked at this, I was thinking like there should be a deadline of no later than the December school committee meeting to agree on the evaluation form that we're going to be using. Because if I read this policy correctly, that could potentially change like what form are we using to do the eval, and then maybe a deadline of the January school committee meeting for every school committee member to provide their written assessments to give to the chair, to give to you. Because you got a burden, you got work to do by the February meeting. Because you got to look at our feedback and then you got to make a determination about whether or not we're inviting the superintendent to our executive session or not. So I think there needs to be a schedule. You know, like the first executive session should be in February, and then the second closeout of the eval should be in March. And maybe we should specifically outline this so it's not wishy-washy. It's very definitive what we're doing. The other thing I noticed, which I don't think was the case in our recent eval, is it looks like there is a vote in the language. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like there's a majority vote somewhere. Of course, I can't find it when I'm talking. Is it in letter 5C? The committee's evaluation should be supported by specific examples of the superintendent's conduct performance and should represent the perspective of the majority of the committee. So that would require us regularly, I guess, voting in this executive session. It seems like perhaps there should be some guidance on how that would look or work.
We can't vote in an executive session, and we did vote last time. I just want to clarify. So I just wanted to stop with that, Mr. Chair, because you can't vote in an executive session, and we didn't. So I want to clarify that for everyone.
Okay, no, I understand what you're saying, but well, it says, number 5 says the committee will meet in superintendent executive session to review the evaluation. And then letters A, B, C, and D are right there. And letter C says the committee's eval should be supported by specific examples of the superintendent's conduct performance and should represent the perspective of the majority of the committee. So maybe voting is the wrong way to say that, obviously, in executive session, but necessarily how if 3 of us feel a certain way and 2 of us don't. I mean, it's vote like, so.
It's probably the combining of the scores, the rubric and the final report.
But that's all I have, just perhaps a scheduling order of things to do that's more precise.
That could be a strength of the policy that we're going to sunset here in the yellow. If you go through that, the process of evaluation, there are some pretty clear dates set forth that we may want to borrow from.
Can I add something to that? Because policy AFB is our policy that we need to be abiding by right now. I understand that we're looking to change it. I understand that we've gotten guidance that we don't need to redo what we did, but we as a committee need to acknowledge that we didn't follow AFB exactly according to what is listed here for policy. I appreciate what we're doing going forward, but this is an existing policy that's in place. And I just want that concern acknowledged, because the questions you're asking, Jean, you are right. We didn't follow what's already existing in policy. We did the evaluation, but we didn't do it exactly according to policy.
It was way ahead of schedule.
Yeah. And we didn't use the evaluation checklist that is provided in the current policy.
Which is fine, but I mean, everybody got what we were gonna do 3 months before we did it, and I don't know all the policies. So if you guys catch a policy that we're not following, please let me know 3 months ago, not, after the fact. That's all I'm saying. I do not know all the policies here. But I certainly do my best. I already told everybody that I already go against one of the policies, and that's to let people speak, so.
I also think, out of fairness to the board, one of the many things that prompted the subcommittee looking at this was that you've been through a rather tumultuous time, and we were not able to find evaluations of the superintendent for the past few years. And then in looking at the template that was included in the policy, it was outdated and really promoted more of an expectation that the superintendent is facilities manager versus relationship with the board, instructional leader, establishing rapport with community. And so, as I explained to Mr. Reynolds and to the school committee members, I took a look at what Mr. Turner uses in RSU 87 for his template, which also was identical to what the superintendent in RSU 64 used as her template. And it was a really consistent and I thought much more contemporary look at the work of the superintendent. It aligned with what our district and strategic plan and goals are. And so all of that comes in at a time where this is a good time to be looking at this. And we were prepared as subcommittee to recognize that this may need to come back again for much more work, and we're certainly open to that.
Can I just go back to something, because I don't want to skip past it because I heard it, but Mr. Chair, BEDH is policy and we do have to follow it. So if you're looking for renovations to it, you could suggest for it to go back to policy committee, but it's not up to any of us to determine what we want to try to break out of policy or not. They're there for us to follow.
Yeah, I agree. I know I'm doing it wrong. But I just thought it was more important to turn down the temperature of the school board meetings after the first, well, I shouldn't even say the first year I was on, and even months and years before that when things, and I'm not blaming anybody that was sitting at this, table either, but there was a lot of crazy stuff that was going on and a lot of upset people. We haven't had too many upset people lately, so if you want to replace me with somebody else for the next month, go ahead. That'll be fine with me.
That's not what I said. I just said
No,
that
I
we
know.
have to follow policy.
But I'm just telling you, I'm not going to. So, like I say, the option is if you guys don't want me to continue, that's fine. I have no problem with it.
So are we bringing the superintendent's evaluation policy back to committee to work on?
I hope so.
Okay. That would be, I think that's where we are, and that's where we need to do some more work on this one.
When it comes back, we'll have an evaluation checklist with it. I mean, there are certain portions of the old policy that has value to it.
I think it's a matter of taking a look at it again, and the reason it came forward is for discussion and input. So taking it back and seeing what we can do to combine bits and pieces of it, while minimizing the number of pages that there are in this policy. I think that that's part of the intent to streamline it, but also get the important points in it. So yes, that's something that we can do.
And when you do that, I know that we updated the job description as well last year, so that might be of value. You'll get the checklist to just look at the job description.
And Debbie, as you know, we've done quite a few evaluations together. I've put not applicable in boxes before when I didn't feel comfortable. Maybe that's something that might be on the top of the list if you don't feel comfortable with a certain parameter of the evaluation. But
If you don't feel you have enough information.
Not enough information, because that's happened before to me, I know.
Yep.
Probably to everybody.
We'll take a look at that.
Do we vote on that? You have a first and a second.
Yes, just send it back.
Well, you have
Or-
a first and a second on just to discuss it.
I retract my motion.
Do we need a motion to kick it back to subcommittee?
No, it's first reading, so.
As a first read, it
Right,
automatically goes
it can
back.
go back, so, yeah. Okay, anybody got any questions on the next? On EHB?
Motion to approve EHB.
Seconded.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Okay.
And we are approving these for first reading.
Right, so they don't have to go back to you guys.
Motion to amend EFE.
Second. Any discussion? Gene?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a big deal, but the first line, the school committee recognizes that sound nutrition is essential to students' physical and social emotional well-being and their readiness to learn. There's my note on that. Yeah, should we define just specifically for the purposes of the policy, like sound nutrition in accordance with what? Like it just right now, it kind of just sounds like an opinion that I think sound nutrition, like what does that mean? So like I looked into it, it sounds like the foundational standards for sound nutrition in Maine are based on dietary guidelines for Americans and the USDA MyPlate. I mean, we might want to look into that, but I think that that's what that means. Do we want that in the policy, or do you guys think it's just self-explanatory? I don't know.
I think a reference is good, and something like that is worthwhile.
That should be the reference that we're teaching the students is proper nutrition in schools. So it only makes sense that it would be used as a reference in our policy.
So maybe a footnote about where that came from is all I was gonna say.
It's a special milk program for children as defined by 7 CFR 215 and the federal school breakfast program.
Is that in here?
Yeah, if you look at the footnote on the bottom of the next page.
That's not the USDA, is it?
If it's in there, it's in there. I just didn't see it. I thought that was referencing something else, but maybe I missed it.
It also says a listing of category foods of minimal nutritional value is in Appendix B to 7 CFR Part 210 of the National School Lunch Program, which I think the federal guidelines follow.
The footnote, yeah, it's like 2 footnotes, but there's no like, usually a footnote would go to something. I don't see the 1 and 2 footnote where that's in the policy, if you follow.
We can certainly review that again.
There's a 1, there's not a 2. Oh, there's a 2. There it is. Shall not include foods of minimal nutritional value as defined in applicable federal regulations, footnote 2. So I think you could think of that.
No, I take that back. I'm wrong. I'm absolutely wrong, guys. There is a 1 and a 2. Ignore everything I'm saying.
All right, so you're all set with the 2 footnotes?
Yeah, I get, again, it looks like the 1 and the 2 are there. When we talk about restriction of the sale of competitive foods, I just don't know if the sound nutrition is specifically defined, but if it is, great. Just flagging it.
Well, to be fair to your point, in that footnote, the second one, it's speaking of foods of minimal nutritional value, so it shows like the threshold that they're not meeting, hyper-processed, all that kind of stuff. So better to define it in the positive, like what is the definition of something that's sound.
The blue lettering also in the policy, in the footnotes, I made those hot links to the actual school breakfast program. That's a hot link to that. So that will refer, if somebody wants to click on those hot links, they can go to that program that it's referring to.
Breakfast meets the nutritional requirements set forth in 7 CFR, subsection 220. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Jody.
Can we take a vote?
We certainly can. I think everybody's set, right? All those in favor? Perfect. Okay, EFD.
Motion to abolish EFD.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? All right, and then EFC.
Motion to amend EFC.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? And then EBCD.
Motion to amend EBCD.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. And EBAB.
Motion to review EBAB.
Second.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
Well, I just didn't know what we were doing with this one because I didn't see like anything in red or any proposed new language. So, and it's a policy from 06, so it's 20 years old. Are we concerned that there's some new law or changes? Or?
You're right, it is from 2006. In bringing this policy forward for review, sometimes this happens where there's no change to the language. We asked our facility supervisor to review this. He is our asbestos manager, and he had no recommendations, no change in statute or anything that would warrant language change here. And so we would still bring it through the first and second read practice and then just change the date at the top that it was reviewed in 2026 so that we can show that we're having a regular look at these.
I guess maybe more of a general question, not specific to EBAB, but is there a policy or guidelines about how often we're supposed to be reviewing policies? Is it every 3 years, every 5 years, or is it just, I don't know the answer.
Point of order, Chair, I would ask that we stick to the agenda item.
I didn't think that was an offensive question, but okay.
I didn't say it was offensive, I just said we have an agenda to stick to.
It's been a couple of times you went off agendas tonight.
Okay, let's get back to getting the business done. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Okay. All right, personnel. Superintendent's employment agreement. Can I have a motion?
Okay. Motion to approve the addendum to the superintendent's employment agreement.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Yes. Okay, all set. Resignations and retirements. You want to take this one?
I know it's the practice of the school committee to acknowledge these and not to take action, but we do have a resignation from our Director of Special Services, who will be leaving us at the end of June to head to another lucky school district. We're also seeing a letter of retirement from Joanne Swales, who's a resource room teacher at our elementary school, and resignation from Rita Dumond, a resource room at Tech, and David Knowlton, who's one of our valuable bus drivers. Under employment, school committee members, I want to draw your attention to, and I indicated that you might see this in my communication with you on Friday. Not only is there the recommendation for a new van driver, David Jelanese, but the recommendation to hire Margaret Hamill, who is currently actually just wrapped up her student teaching with Ruth Parent in our high school world language classes. I had the opportunity to pop in and see her lessons. Mr. Walsh has seen her a number of times. Highly accomplished, very mature teacher with really exemplary world language skills. And we're lucky to be able to attract and have a teacher of her caliber agree to work with us for the coming school year. So there's that recommendation to approve.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve both of them?
Motion to approve.
Second. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. And go ahead.
Number 4 is a motion to approve Ruth Parent as a mentor teacher. This is a position she's been occupying for this school year. It just did not make it to the agenda at the beginning of the school year.
Move to approve Ruth Parent as a mentor teacher.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, job descriptions.
Move to approve the teacher of world languages.
Second.
Any discussion?
Is there a reason why I couldn't find it reference Maine learning results? Why wouldn't say to align with Maine learning results standards or something to that effect? It just doesn't reference it.
We can certainly take a look at that. Maine backed off of their requirement that high schools maintain a world language program, and many of the universities have stopped offering it as a credential program. So not only do I want to look at Maine learning standards, we're including them, but I would also then look at National Council of World Language Teachers and make sure we're including those standards as well.
Yeah, sure.
I had a point of feedback, and it actually will be in the third one we look at as well. in qualifications, it's minor, but I like the idea of sequencing. So I think the degree comes before the certificate or licensing. You don't get the license if you don't have the appropriate education. So I would list degree required first, certificate, license, legal credential second.
Do you want to make a motion to put that in as an amendment? Well, we've already got a motion to, so.
Would it be a vote to approve as amended, or is there still the other issue that around standards, or is that not going to make its way back into this?
Good question.
You can do one or two things. You can either approve with the expected amendments, or you can table, and we would bring it back to the next month's meeting for discussion and approval.
None of these time sensitive, are they?
They are not.
So. Gene, go ahead.
So, for teacher of world languages, I guess we're doing one by one. I was going to say to all of these, somewhere in here, the ability to use and implement AI within that particular course of study. I don't know if it's in here or if I missed it, but that seems likely the direction we're headed. Is that something we want in there?
Not opposed.
What are you gonna specifically say about AI?
Yeah, I don't have the language right now, but just something to the effect of being able to use it and implement it within that particular job description. I'm sure the subcommittee could workshop better language.
Yeah, there should be an AI statement that can be added to all updates of teachers. It's just a blanket, it doesn't have to be specific to world language, but just implement AI through their, it's a blanket statement.
The other, I remember there was something else in this one, in 13, item 13, integrate culturally authentic. I could even say culture authentic, probably culturally.
So Barbara, do you want to have all three of these back so you can take all the comments and try to work them out? Stephanie made a motion though, I think, on.
I retract my motion, but are we at a position where we want to talk about all three, or?
A
What were you
and
gonna
C
do
were
separately?
talked about. I don't think B was. You guys want to pass B or?
How about, so I retracted my motion. How about, I have some discussion about one of the others. I make a motion to table and go back to the people that were reviewing it, the three policies: teacher of world languages, guidance counselor, high school.
The job description.
Job descriptions.
Job description.
Job description.
Second.
Second. Any other discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Under high school guidance counselor. It's my understanding it reports to the vice principal, so I just would suggest that we update that, please. And there's several areas where, like number 11, respond to crisis situations and provide appropriate support and referrals. I just don't think that we can put in there enough that we are involving the parents or guardians of the family.
And that goes to the point I was gonna make is we're redacting 21, which is confer with parents whenever necessary. You shouldn't be redacting communicating with parents.
And number 17, also, for some reason, scholarship searches is redlined. And now that we're going to have 3 positions going forward, I'd like to see more involvement in helping our students with scholarship searches and involving parents early on with the FAME main contact. The parents should be CC'd on the communication that the students get from the senior meetings, because that's how colleges work. With all financial aid, the parents are included on it. So I just, somewhere in here, I think that the parents need to be more involved and see what's happening in that senior meeting, how they can support their student. I just think there's lots of opportunity to enhance the position.
Can I say
Like-
something?
Yeah.
At least to my knowledge, and I may be wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong. When I had my senior meeting, my guidance counselor had a whole document of everything we went over, my career goals, the scholarships I've had so far, everything that my parents did know, and then that was sent to my parent and guardian.
I did not get it, nor did several others. So again, I think that that's helpful to have consistency.
I'd also like to reference number 16, which dovetails a little bit with what Stephanie was commenting on, but the last portion of that is employment applications that was struck. Throughout the guidance, I don't see a whole lot of assistance to those students that are not going on to a technical school, or they're going into the workforce rather than pursuing other education. So I guess it's a 2-part question. Is there something in the school that already assists them or teaches them how to apply for a job? And if not, should it be included into the guidance position?
There absolutely is. We can find a way to make sure we're wording that more carefully.
All right, any other discussion?
Yeah, I had a point that applies to middle school guidance, or pre-K through 8 guidance, and then high school. So the smaller nugget, I guess, is in the high school one. Again, I would reorder the degree as 1, first qualification required, certificate and license being 2nd. And then I guess my question for both is number 3, such alternatives to the above qualifications as the school committee may find appropriate and acceptable. I don't know, this goes back to things we've talked about. So I'll use the example of the high school one. So it says a master's, MEd is short for Masters of Education in Counselor Education. And so if you all found a candidate that had a Master of Arts or a Master of Science in that, in that profession or specialty, is it something that the school committee needs to find appropriate and acceptable, or is it as good as, your office, Dr. Sargent, or one of the administrators? You all are laying eyes on that. Those hiring things don't get to us. So to me, it should defer to administrators and superintendent more so than school committee on that, personally.
Good point. Okay, you all set with your homework assignment? All right, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor to send it back? Thank you. All right. Guess that's it, isn't it? Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn at 8:13 or 8:14 p.m.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Would I be able to speak just because your agenda was changed? Since I
Sure.
wasn't...
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Haley Kisa from Herman. I appreciate the chance to speak because your agenda changed and therefore I wasn't a well-informed citizen to be able to speak in advance on time. Also, I wanted to say you are following policy. If I recall correctly, the policy does allow you to have people speak to new business items. And so I appreciate and I agree with you that the chaos has decreased greatly by your allowing the community to be able to speak when we're here and take the time to be here. One thing that I wanted to mention that I had brought up last year, we used to have subcommittee meetings that were open to the public and we'd be able to come and speak to issues. One issue that I spoke on at that time was reconsideration about how the special education rooms are set up and options for safety and ways that we can improve that within the building. And I would still like to have that discussion. It's something that I did speak with the fire chief on last year. We did have that during a facility subcommittee meeting. I think I have a lot of ideas. The fire chief is very supportive of those. I would really encourage the whole entire school committee. You are working on a budget, and the special education department specifically needs to have a tour by the school committee. You guys are assigned by law to tour these facilities. Each of them you're responsible for the upkeep, and I really think you should spend time in that and see how they're not compliant to ADA. We need to have space for wheelchairs to move in those rooms, and I really think that you have to have staff spend some time in there when there are students in there and to see that it's really not conducive to wheelchairs and accommodating both staff and students to meet the most of those needs. And that's a program that's pretty well funded. And I think even just maybe one, reconsidering its location, but two, just reconsidering how the room is configured so that it can accommodate wheelchairs. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now I'll have the motion.
Stephanie made a motion.
We already have a motion on the table.
Okay. Second? Okay. Any discussion?